First of all, we understand today that the tsunami is coming. We can't prevent it. We can't. It's already happened. It happened in the 7th of October. It happened before, but we talk about tsunami now and not about small waves.
Welcome to What Came After. I'm your host, Manya Marcus. On What Came After, we'll take a look at the many ways people's lives have changed since the brutal massacre in Israel on October 7th, 2023. We'll be speaking to people around the world to learn how this profound moment in Jewish and global history continues to shift, shape, and change them. To learn more, please visit us at whatcameafter.com. Hi, I'm Manya Marcus, and this is being recorded on October 20th, 2025. The surviving hostages have finally been released, and those who didn't return alive are slowly being brought back to Israel for burial and, hopefully, some measure of closure for their families. While much remains uncertain, one thing is clear. The emotional recovery for returned hostages, bereaved families, and an entire nation coping with collective trauma will be a long and complex process. In this episode, I speak with several remarkable people from Ripples of Healing, a therapeutic program that helps individuals process trauma through guided immersion in water. It's a powerful and innovative approach that's making a real impact. I hope you enjoy this conversation, which explores the therapy itself, as well as the personal journeys of several people who've been transformed by it. Hello, it is September 11th, 2025, anniversary of a very dark day in American history, but I am still so happy to be here in Skokie. I am joined by Tzviki Barkai, Einat Tsarfati, and Yitzchak Rabinovitz. All of you are very far from home.
That's right.
Can each of you introduce yourselves? Tell us why you are 2 continents from home today.
My name is Tzviki Barkai. I came from Israel. I live in Givot Bar, which is a settlement located in the south of Israel. We came to United States 2 weeks ago, pretty much to explain and share our knowledge about our method to treat PTSD, to raise support, to do what we know we can do. We do it for the last 2 weeks, and that's it.
Great. So I just want to interject here and say that the program you're referring to is called Ripples of Healing in English. What is the program called in Hebrew? And then please introduce yourself.
So our program is Advot Marpeh, Ripples of Healing. And my name is Einat from Israel. Very happy to be with you this morning. I'm the founder of Einot Bar. אז היי, אני עינת צרפתי מעינות בר, מישראל. ייסדתי את עינות בר לפני 10 שנים, כמקום שמביא ריפוי חדשני. ואנחנו כאן בארצות הברית, באמת בעקבות התקופה המאוד מאוד קשה שיש בישראל, ובעקבותיה מאות אלפים, אנחנו משערים שגם הרבה מעבר למיליונים, שלוקים בתופעה היום של פוסט-טראומה.
All right, so Einat, introduce herself. Einat Tsarfati, Cohen from Givot Bar. She's the founder of Ripples of Healing, which is a translation in Hebrew of Advot Marpeh. This is our NPO, not-profit organization that we created 2 years ago after the 7th of October. It was a business before the 7th of October. We take our business and shift it to something else. We had the tools, we had the instrument to do what we can do, but not in such amount that came after the 7th of October. And after we understand, all right, we have the tools, we can do things, people need those things. So we not take the decision to take a profitable business and to make it a not-profit organization that can raise money and do what she knows she can do.
Thank you. And Yitzchak, could you share your story, where you're from? People will think you're from here because you are an American, but where do you live now?
I came in Aliyah in 1978, and since then I've been living in Israel and working as an engineer. And I came across Ripples of Healing and Einot Bar as I've had 4 sons serving since October 7th in the Army, all over 300 days at least. The youngest had 300 days. And one of my sons, who's had 2 tours in Gaza and 2 tours in Lebanon, he had pretty bad post-trauma. And I saw what they did with him in Ripples of Healing, and it was like a miracle. I said to myself, I got to get involved. I got to see it with my own eyes. There's lots and lots of people who suffer from post-trauma. Some of my friends, because I'm a bit older, who served in the Yom Kippur War, are still suffering to this day from post-trauma. In those days, there was no awareness for it. Now there is. And even the guys who served in Yom Kippur, and there's awareness now, they don't want to take care of it. And they're suffering to this day. And I saw that the sooner you could start doing the therapy for post-trauma, the easier it is to cope with it and to really try and live a normal life afterwards. And what I saw in Ripples of Healing was that they were using hydrotherapy methods, in other words, methods of healing in water that totally opened the person up. And that together with meditation and with group discussions and with methods of releasing negative energy from the body, for the days that my son was there, it made a big difference. And I feel we have to support this organization and do whatever we can, bring awareness and get more people in who are going to be suffering. But all this comes at a cost, and we have to help these guys. It's very important.
I'm curious what you can share about the actual work. When somebody comes to Ripples of Healing, what is it that they do?
So first of all, our basic start from the water. This is our main facility, our swimming pool, which we love very much. Everything starts from there. The pool with the specific temperature, with the specific measures inside, brings the body, when you get in, to some kind of a balanced level. Sugar, blood pressure, temperature, everything get balanced because this is what the water does. As a human being, it's basic for us. We came from water. We came for that temperature. And if we don't feel it right away, the body will go through a small transformation. So everything starts from there. Today, we develop a method that we call the way of water, which is integrative treatment, which we work not only with the body and not only with the soul. We work with both. I'm not sure how it's in English, but when you say hydrotherapy in Hebrew, it's usually meant for physical therapy. For someone after accident or someone with broken legs or something like that.
Meaning they will do their rehabilitation in the water to get use of their body again.
I just mean that hydrotherapy is like physiotherapy in the water.
Right.
When you say it in Hebrew, that's what most of people are going to hear. So we don't do hydrotherapy. We do something else. We work with the body, we work with the soul combined. Group of people goes into the water, move their body, shake their hands, shake their feeling, shake everything. And when something there is different, when something can get changed, then we work with conversation. Then we work with processing. Then we can go deeper as much as we want.
Is the pool indoors or outdoors?
It's kind of both. It's indoor, but not closed. It's with a soft material. It's not walls. It's like a tent.
And once people have this feeling of being neutral, balanced, they've shaken out some of the discomfort and the distress, does the next part happen in the water, or do they come out of the water to have the conversation?
It can start outside of the water and get into the water. It can start in the water and get out of the water for the process. It can get all of this into the water. I think the one thing that repeats itself, everything that we do have some related to the water. This is our specialty. This is what we do for 10 years, not just the 7th of October. It's a hard sentence, but I will say it, that we came prepared for the 7th of October, as in key measures of treatment of PTSD, because this is what we do for 10 years. The one thing that we not prepare is for the amount of civilians and soldiers that come together. And this is basically the important thing that we want people to understand, that Israel is a small country and the percent of people who suffered now and going to suffer in the next future from PTSD is tremendous. If we want to talk just a little bit about numbers, before the 7th of October was 8,000 PTSD known. Today we stand about over 60,000. 60,000. And I'm just talking about the one that we know about, because probably there are hundreds of thousands that suffer for some level at PTSD and not get recognition yet. Or maybe they won't.
So I want to ask a quick question. Ripples of Healing is located in the Negev. So that is the south of Israel.
The north of the south. Yes.
The north part of the south.
Exactly.
But you are actually very close, proximate to where some of the worst atrocities occurred. Do you feel on some level that's almost fortunate now to be close to where a lot of it happened?
You know, I'm going to tell you a story and maybe it will answer your question. When the war, 1 or 2 months after the 7th of October was ongoing, the soldiers came for us. They came to our place, not because we publish our method and not because we invited them. We just said yes. It was like a fire in, I don't know how to say it in English.
It spreads like wildfire.
Wildfire,
That's the
exactly.
expression.
So what I was going to say that commander with the soldiers came to our place, maybe to take a shower, maybe to take a rest. We do what we can do. And he told it to his friend in Gaza, by the way, another commander, because it was such a mess after the 7th of October. You have to take your soldiers to relax in that place. And in 4 or 5 months, more than 15,000 soldiers been in our place, which we talk about not a big place. It's a house with swimming pool near to it. That's it. We talk about almost 200 soldiers a day. Comings and going. We talk about soldiers that get out from Gaza for 3 or 4 hours with their hammers, with their vehicles, because we're located maybe 30 minutes driving from the Gaza Strip. So if the soldiers have 3 or 4 hours break, they just heard about us, called us, parking their vehicle near our pool and just get in. And this is how it's going. It was like month after month, thousands of soldiers and other civilians came, and it was, as I said, in the wildfire.
So this is something that I really want to emphasize because a lot of the people who listen to the podcast are American. And it's very hard for us to understand this concept of a war in our backyard. You can come out for 4 hours. That's very difficult for us to understand because we've never had a war that was so close. It's always been so far away. And so people really need to understand that men were coming out of Gaza for hours or a few days, were able to kind of refuel, but then they were going right back in.
So I'm going to answer now as a combat soldier. So I was a combat soldier. I still a combat soldier. In 7th of October I served. But my story started probably 15 years ago. I take part of one, the biggest Israeli operation. It was not a war. It was military operation. I was injured. Sniper shot my helmet. He didn't hit my helmet direct. If it was like that, I probably won't be here talking about it. He grazed my helmet. I had a concussion, and that's it. I was for a week rest in my home, and that is, I got back to the army and everything. 2 or 3 years later, there was a reaction of what we call today PTSD. It was something that grew up with the time. It's not just in one case, but it grew bigger and bigger. And I remember the specific day. It was doing trekking in South of America, and I heard shotgun fire. And suddenly it was like a blackout. I was shivering. It was an anxiety attack. I know it now, but it was a very big one. But that day, what's important to know that day, I understand that I need help. It's not gonna get better. All this time I thought, all right, I won't think about it. I will sweep it under the fridge, or I don't know how to say it in English.
Under the rug.
Under the rug, yeah. But that day I understand I need professional help, which is so important to understand that I'm sure that many soldiers and civilians right now feel the same way and say to themselves, all right, it will get through without any professional help. I'm strong, I can handle it. My friends have suffered much more. I can't talk about now my mental issues. It's small, it's nothing, which is not true. And they deserve the help and they deserve all the tools to get through, to make it better. So for my luck, I understand that I need professional help. I go to psychologist, I go to psychiatrist, many methods and many things help, but I don't feel that something is really helped me as much as Einat, that actually the day that she got into my life. I come to a WhatsApp therapy. She gave it to me.
Einat was the woman who provided you with hydrotherapy when you were in need of this service.
I came to this place to Reapers of Feelings as a client, as a PTSD soldier that need help. When I got into the water, it was the first time that I could relive the moment and not adjust it. Because every time that something remind me my injury, I would feel the anxiety attack coming, and I was like, oh no, I'm not gonna think about it right now, let's think about something else. But in the water, I had no choice. At the first treatment, I had anxiety attack, for sure. I really lived the moment, but that day I said, all right, I need to do something because that's getting worse, not getting better. So I come to the second treatment, which is much better. And the third treatment, I felt like I can relive the moment and all right, the days keep going. And it took few treatments, but after some time, it just became a memory. A bad memory, bad and big memory, but not something that changed my day. After the first treatment, I just go to sleep. That's it. Couldn't do anything. Go to sleep, I did nothing. and the anxiety attack less and less. We talk about 15 years ago, but I think I didn't have an anxiety attack 8 years ago. I had 2 of them actually, but during my combat military service since the 7th of October. I had the tools to treat them.
So there's a few different directions that I want to go. The question that I want to come back to with you, so I'll give you a moment to prepare, is that knowing that you have PTSD, why you chose to go into Miluim, go into reserves, and serve again. I want to ask you that next. But first, I want to pass the mic to Yitzchak, because when Tzviki was talking about the fact that 60,000 are known to some official entity as having PTSD, and that means there are so many more. Yitzchak, the reason that I wanted to pass the mic to you is that you see this among your children, right? You have the son who chose to go to Ripples of Healing, and you saw the incredible work that was done. But I know that you have either another son or maybe other sons, plural, who don't think that they need the help, but you feel that they do. Can you speak about that?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I have 4 sons who served. 3 were in combat situations, and they suffered at different levels. For example, my son who served in Gaza, they were in a situation where they maybe didn't shoot their guns every day, but they were under constant duress. They couldn't take off their clothes. They couldn't take a shower. They couldn't relax. On the other hand, I had 2 sons who were in the West Bank, and their job was to, night by night, go into places where they were known terrorists and try and prevent attacks coming from the terrorists in Israel and wherever. For example, my youngest son, who was on a patrol duty one night, sees a car that shouldn't be in the place, opened up the trunk, and it was full of explosives with a timer ready to go off. Totally freaked him out. His older brother is the battalion commander. He called him, and he knew what to do. He got the engineering corps, and they took care of it. So these guys were actually being shot at. These guys were shooting back all the time. These guys were in frontal confrontation with an enemy that they saw face to face, day to day. After they did their operations at night, they went back to the base. They could take a shower, they could eat. But when they were on operations, the level of anxiety, the level of tension was tremendous. The son who also found this car, he also suffered from post-trauma, not just because of the car incident, but because you're out there, you don't know where it's going to come from, and you're being shot at, and it affects you. So he also went for some sort of therapy, not with the bar. He did therapy with the horses, and it seemed to help him somewhat. His older brother, who was the battalion commander, he was working 24/7. And when he didn't have to work, when he was too tired, he gave it to his deputy until he woke up again, and then 24/7. This guy gets out of the army, goes back into civilian life, and guess what? It's not 24/7. There's a family. He's got to take care of kids. He has to do mundane things. The common denominator of all my sons were they were not adapting to life after their military service. They were not functioning properly. They needed help. Now, the older son, who's the battalion commander, he doesn't think he needs help. It'll be okay. The other 2 and their wives pushed him also, who were smart enough to be able to understand, hey, I'm not getting through this by myself. I need help. The one who was in Gaza, his wife also took them for couples therapy because he wasn't home for 300 days during the first part of the war. He gets home. He's got 7 kids. His kids really want to see him and hug him. And what is his first words? I need my space. Let me alone. And that's not normal. It's just not normal.
But in a way it is. It's just not healthy.
It's not healthy. You're right.
But it is a normal reaction to that level of intense
But from his
stress.
family, they didn't see it like that. From his point of view, it was. It doesn't just affect the families, the wives and the kids. It affects the grandparents. It affects the family. So many couples get divorced because the families are falling apart. It's just terrible. I could say even my wife was a midwife. She's told me on several occasions that she's delivered babies where at the delivery, they have a picture of the father who was killed. And if you think this doesn't affect the midwives who are delivering the babies, I got news for you. It affects them. And they bring this home. And it affects all of us. I could even tell you that we were exposed to sirens all the time in Israel. Now, we joke about it, and we're not afraid of it. But to tell you the honest truth, every time I hear a siren or an ambulance or something going by, for the first 200 milliseconds, I jump. So it affects you. I think there's different levels. There's different types of post-trauma. In whole, it will affect not just families, but the country as a whole. And we need to nip this in the bud. We need to be able to deal with this as close as we can to events so as to be able to solve these issues instead of having them grow. As Tzviki said, there are some people who post-trauma only pops up years later. But still, if we could recognize this early on, maybe we could prevent this.
Let me ask you a question. You have sons who have received these services, who really have benefited. Their families have benefited. But you have another son, at least, who doesn't feel that he needs it. His wife and children feel that he does. Does he feel comfortable with you sharing about him?
Don't know, but it's the truth. I don't know. That's the answer. But you could see a difference in the way people perform. And by the way, it's not just one treatment. The treatment has to be follow-up. The people have to follow themselves up. They need to know when they need more treatment until there's something better that they could be under
Maintenance.
monitoring, supervision.
Yeah, right.
But that's not going to happen. Right. So a lot of the stuff is having the relationship with places like a note bar, and specifically a note bar. By the way, it's interesting, even in Jewish tradition, water has a healing effect. We talk about the mikveh, for example. There's two levels in this world. There's the physical, where if you throw something on the floor, it's going to fall because it's gravity. But there's a metaphysical world. For example, you wake up in the morning, you say, I have a bad feeling. How can you describe this in physical terms? But you have a feeling. And the water comes and it repairs the metaphysical feeling. There can be metaphysical uncleanliness, metaphysical hurt. It's not physical hurt, but it means that you're at a different level, and the water comes for rebirth. It brings you to life again. We talk about living water. That's what the water does. It causes us to live. It rebirths us, the possibility of coming to life again. And to go back to what my wife does, she does water births. What a beautiful way of taking a child, instead of giving him the shock of coming into the world, doing it gently through water as part of the birthing process, as part of the reliving or entering the living process. That's where I really connected with a note bar, because that's what they do. It's not just the water. It's the talking. It's the meditation. It's coming in contact with your inner self and trying to purify your inner self from the terrible things or experiences that you've gone through. And it might not just be because of being shot at or whatever. It could be for a lot of reasons. But people have scars, and this kind of repairs the scars.
That was a very lovely and passionate, moving depiction of what happens at Ripples of Healing. Einat, can you tell us how you came to this work and why you founded this place? Tell us how this started.
So, it's a long story. הגעתי למים במקרה. זה היה איפשהו בתחילת גיל ה-20. הייתי צלמת תת-ימית, והלכתי לצלם בריכה חדשה שנפתחה בישראל.
Einat started this when she was in her 20s. She was a underwater photographer, and she went to an event where she did some underwater photography. And this is how she got started with underwater stuff.
That's wild.
הבריכה הראשונה שהוקמה בישראל בעצם עבדה עם ילדים עם בעלי צרכים מיוחדים במקום מאוד קשה. כשבעצם מה שראיתי זה שהמים יכולים להוציא אותם מהמקום המאוד קשה, כמו אוטיזם, לחיים רגילים.
So she used to do underwater photography in swimming pools that were used for therapy with special needs children. And she noticed that by bringing them into the water, it would start somewhat of a healing process with them.
וזה באמת היה רגע מכונן. זה היה, וואו, כאילו המים יכולים לעשות כזה דבר, וזה סחף אותי ללמידה ארוכת שנים, בעצם על כוח הריפוי של המים.
So the first time she did this with the special needs children was an amazing moment. She was totally shocked that water would have this sort of power to be able to help people who had special needs. And she decided at that time she has to go deeper into this field and try to use water to help people.
ככה זה התחיל. ובעצם לאורך השנים טיפלתי בכל חלק בחיים שלנו, תינוקות, עוברים, פעוטות, נערים וילדים, ובעצם הבנתי שמשברים יושבים בתוך הגוף. והמים הם פשוט כלי מאוד עוצמתי להפוך משבר לצמיחה.
So she started working with all sorts of people, from babies to teenagers to young adults. And she noticed that the water had such an amazing power to help people in crisis and help people come to terms with their crises so that they're able to function properly. And this is what the motivation was for opening up Ripples of Healing.
It's interesting. This morning, a friend in Israel, I had planned to reach out to her. Speaking of that spidey sense that you can sometimes have that's not in the physical world, she reached out to me instead. We haven't spoken in months. And I said, listen, I'd like to talk, but I'm on my way to an interview with some people who run a program called Ripples of Healing. And she said, I tried to get my husband, who did 3 tours, 2 in Gaza, 1 in Lebanon, to go to Ripples of Healing. And he said, why do I need to go? And she said, I would go. If you don't want to go, I will go. You are speaking about, about secondary trauma. There's people who have this primary trauma. They've been shot at. They've had really violent, painful experiences. And then the ripple effect. Can you guys talk about what it's like to know that there is so much secondary trauma in your country, and whether or not you hope that your program can reach people who aren't just primary victims of trauma, but have experienced secondary trauma as well?
אחד אני חושבת הזכות הגדולה של המטפלים בעינות בר והמקום בעינות בר, היה לקלוט מסה קריטית מאוד גדולה של אנשים.
One of the merits that she had was the ability to receive a huge amount of people to be able to take care of them at Einot Bar.
והדברים הראשונים שראינו, כי בהתחלה פגשנו בעצם את האזרח שנפגע או את החייל שנפגע, הדבר הראשון שראינו כנפגע משני זה הבית, זה אנשים, והתחלנו להעלות את זה לתקשורת בישראל, ולהציף שזה לא רק האזרח וזה לא רק החייל, זה האישה, זה הילדים, זה ההורים.
She said that it wasn't just being able to come in contact with the person who was affected by himself, the primary person who suffered the post-trauma, but it's also coming in connection with the families, the children, the parents, the wives, the spouses, anybody else who came into effect with them. And Einot Bar started going out to the media in Israel to make an issue about it, to let people know that you're not alone and that there's something that could be done with, not just to help the primary person who went through a trauma, but those who are a ripple effect, say, to those who were in contact with the, I don't want to say victim, I don't like to use the word victim, but the primary person who was affected by the trauma.
יש הרבה דרכים לעבוד עם הטראומה כרגע. המטרה הראשונה שלנו בישראל היא קודם כל להגיע לאותם משפחות, לאותם חיילים, לאותם נשים, ולהעלות את המודעות.
We're doing a lot of things to get to people who came in first contact with trauma, but now we're making a lot of efforts to try and get to the families and other people who were affected by the trauma itself. And if I could just say that, I'm adding now, that the problem is the amount of people who really need help is a huge amount of people, maybe half of the country. And facilities just aren't there to deal with everybody. And I think the first step is people need to raise their hands and say, hey, I need help. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. Quite certain, without any exceptions, these people need help. We all need help. But when you have 15 seconds to get to somebody, that's not normal. And that's how you're living your life. And take into account there are generations of kids who were born, that's all they know. And that's difficult.
נכון, אתה מרגש. הדבר הבא זה בעצם להחזיר את הביטחון, את האהבה לתוך הבית, את הביחד, ובעצם לבנות את החוסן החדש. מה שאנחנו עושים בעינות בר, אנחנו לא מתעסקים עם הטראומה. הטראומה היא שם. אנחנו עוברים דרך הטראומה לצמיחה. אנחנו גדלים מתוך המשבר.
What they're trying to do at Ripples of Healing is not solve the trauma. The trauma is there. But how do you live with the trauma? How you could bring love back into the house, confidence back into the house, a sense of togetherness. We're a family unit. And this is the challenge that we have at Ripples of Healing, to be able to bring the house back to a household and not individuals living in a house, but the togetherness, to have love in the house.
Can I actually ask Sviki is that okay?
I have so many things to say.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can say what you would like, and I also have a follow-up question. There's a concept of moral injury. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's this idea that people who help, right? Soldiers, doctors, therapists, anybody who's in a position to help also sees that they cannot help everybody who needs it. And how painful it is when you know you have something that can help people, but you can't take it to everybody who needs that help. Has that been traumatic for you to know that this is necessary, but know also that not everybody can experience it?
Well, so a few things. First of all, we understand today, it might be hard to hear, but we understand today that the tsunami PTSD in some level is coming, right? We can't prevent it. We can't. It's already happened. It happened in the 7th of October. It happened before, but we talk about tsunami now and not about small waves. So we understand we can't prevent it and we can't have a solution for everything, but we can be as much prepared as we can to what's coming. I'm going to talk now kind of solution. We can provide knowledge. We can educate another student to do what we do. And I don't want to say Reapers of Healing is the only solution, but to get prepared as much as we can to that tsunami. It's coming and it will be bigger. No doubt about it. That's one thing. The other thing I want to say, to make people understand why this is a tsunami, you don't have to be in a combat situation or be in a horrific situation to have PTSD. It can be something small. When you get into the war zone over and over again, we put ourselves, I'm saying we because I feel like one of the combat soldier, we put ourselves kind of invisible shield that blocks emotions blocks fear, blocks anything that prevent me to do my mission. When I have the anxiety attack, I didn't have it in Gaza. There I was like machine. When I got back into Israel, the adrenaline went down, then the anxiety attacks comes. But when I'm there, I'm a Superman with that invisible machine. But I'm saying it because that invisible shield is very hard to take off. When you're a combat soldier, you get in, you have to put that shield. You have to not be afraid of what's coming. You have to react exactly for what you're commanded and what you're trained for. But when you're back to your home, your wife, to your kids, a lot of conflict there because I can't be without emotions when I'm with my family, when I'm with my wife. So I understand everything Yitzchak mentioned about his son because that shield is still on when he said I need space. He's in a combat mood right now. Maybe it's not the correct phrase, but he's not in a place where he can provide his family what they need it.
Well, it's like, you come home and you can take your uniform off.
You take your
But the
uniform
mind-
off, but it's not a switch that you can turn off and on. For sure, not for everyone. But
Right.
one of the things that we do in a not bar is teach them how to switch on and off the best way that they can. Because they need to go back to the war zone maybe in a few months after, and they need to know how to come back home.
So it just so happens that I am a therapist. I'm a I'm a clinical therapist. And part of what I want to add to this is that for years you told yourself, I feel a certain way. My brain says, just stop. Just put it under the rug. But it stays in the body, right? The feeling stays in the body. And so it sounds like what happens at Ripples of Healing is that there is the bridge between the body, the brain, the soul. The water puts all of those things on one plane. Why did you decide to go back into combat? You've had a horrible experience.
Oh, that's a great question. For me, it was not question about it. My country is bleeding, so I'm ready. This is the first thing.
Can I ask you a question just based
Yeah.
on that? Is it easier for you to flip into soldier mode?
That's easy peasy. To go back to be a soldier when I need to, it was scary the first time. At the second time, I was ready. To get back to my home after just a few months in Gaza Strip was pretty hard.
I noticed my sons that going back into combat was even a relief. Going back into reserve duty was a big relief. They didn't know how to behave in civilian life. Even ones who got therapy, they're still working on it. But to go back and being a soldier, relief.
I can agree. It's not, we are adults. We're not kids anymore. I have 2 daughters, and of course I'm thinking about them when I get into Gaza. But we know we're in the place that we have to be in. There is no question about it. That's what I feel. I'm going to speak in my name. I'm coming back to your question. There was no problem for me to get back in. It was a big problem to get out in my mind. For me, it was the second time that I was in Gaza, 15 years later. It was, I don't know how to put words on it, but it was a closure for me. My mind got back to the way it should be. And maybe another thing that I want to say, I think for me, the best treatment was to talk about the injury. Everything that I'm doing right now make me feel better. I think my suggestion for all the people that hear us right now, that if they can, for any trauma, PTSD, or mental issue, talking about it and processing it is the best way
To
to
heal.
work with it, for me.
Einat, I have a question. You're a woman. You're around a lot of men in this line of work. What is that like to be this kind of healing woman in the midst of a lot of kind of damaged men? Do you think about that dynamic?
אני רגע רק אגיד שבתוך חבורת הגברים יש הרבה מאוד נשים שלוחמות ולוקחות חלק בפרויקט המאוד מאוד קשה, גם בתוך עוטף עזה וגם בתוך המלחמה, באחוז מאוד גבוה, אז אני רק רגע אשים את זה.
Einat said that within not just the war, but there's a lot of women also involved who have been traumatized by this. It's not just men.
ולגבי השאלה לגברים, זו באמת שאלה טובה, שהאמת שאף פעם לא חשבתי עליה. אני חושבת שהגברים הגיעו מוכנים לרגע הזה, זו קצת תשובה אולי רוחנית. אחד הדברים המדהימים ששמתי לב אליהם, זה כשהם נכנסו למתחם, הם עוד לא ראו לאן הם הגיעו, הם ביקשו טיפול. וזה אף פעם לא היה לאורך כל השנים, אנשים לא באו מוכנים לקבל טיפול.
Regarding men, she really didn't think about men until, I guess she asked the question now. But then she said, One of the differences is that they came prepared for this moment. And when they came to Ripples of Healing, they came on their own initiative saying, I need help. I need therapy. So they were ready for this. They knew this. Just to add also is after October 7th, when the troops were training, they were also trained, hey, you may need help after this. You may see bad things. You may stop functioning. Notice these signs and be prepared that you might need it. And she said they were prepared. The men asked and were ready to receive the treatment.
ובאמת דבר נוסף למוכנות, שזה גם משהו שלא היה לאורך כל השנים שעבדנו עם חיילים ונפגעים, זו הייתה פתיחות ומוכנות לצאת למסע, שזה מה שהמים עושים, שהוא אחר, ואני חושבת שזה גם החלק המאוד גדול באימפקט היום של הטיפול, זה שהבנים מוכנים לצאת למסע חדש.
The males, they wanted to embrace this journey. It wasn't a one-of therapy. It wasn't something, okay, we'll come this afternoon and that's it. It's a journey at Ripples of Healing.
I want to zoom out a little bit. As I mentioned, I am a therapist, and what we have seen in the field in America, I would say anti-Semitism. Some people would say anti-Zionism. These things have started to affect the field. People are bringing politics into the work that we do. And some of what I'm starting to see is people not just saying, I don't approve of a Zionist therapist, but I don't approve of clients. People don't deserve therapy and healing if they do not agree with me. I'm wondering, as the war goes on, people's perspectives on it change, not just in Israel, but around the world. If you feel any of that political interference on the work that you do, but do you ever feel that they come together?
אז אני אקח את זה רגע אחורה. במשך 10 שנים, עינות בר בעצם יצרה סוג של מציאות חדשה בישראל. אם זה החלק הערבי-יהודי באזור שלנו, החיבור, הביחד, ועוד הרבה פרויקטים. אני חושבת שחלק מדהים בפרויקט הזה הוא להיות מעל הכל.
Einot Bar actually created a new existence in Israel. In other words, it's in the Negev. There are Muslims there. There are Jews there. And people came because they needed help, regardless of their race, regardless of their religion. And it created a homogeneous community of people who needed help. So it kind of put a togetherness, putting everybody in the same pool, whether they were treated because of war, whatever the trauma was. So it was about the trauma. It wasn't about politics, and it wasn't about opinions of how things should happen.
ודבר נוסף, פוליטיקה, מלחמות, זה הדבר שמפריד, זה הדבר שגורם למשבר. כשאנחנו מדברים על לחזור לאחדות, לחזור לעצמך, זה בעצם לחזור להיות שוב בן אדם, להסתכל בעיניים, לגעת, להיות ביחד, לפתוח את הלב, וזה בעצם הריפוי שקורה. אז זה היה בעצם המעל שאנחנו נמצאים, כל הפוליטיקה והמלחמה היא שם למטה.
Politics and war is the thing that divides people. It causes people to be violent against each other. It causes people to be at odds with each other. And now at Advat Marpeh, where the therapy actually goes against that, it says we're above the politics. We're above our personal opinions. We're above what's going on. We're looking at people in their eyes, not as Arabs, not as Jews, not as religious or whatever, just human dignity, and treat people as people.
ודבר אחרון, אם רגע נחשוב על הפול, על מה שקורה במתחם שלנו, זה מתחם שהוא מרגיש כמו בית, שכל אחד בא ומרגיש בבית, והדבר הבא, יש הרבה מאוד מגע, הרבה מאוד קרבה, ממש ככה כמו שאנחנו תינוקות והאימא מחזיקה אותנו, ושם אנחנו חוזרים לביטחון, לאהבה, זאת אומרת, זה בדיוק ההפוך להפריד בינינו, הקונטרה של עינות בר זה החיבור, והוא ממש ממש קרוב, זאת אומרת, זה ממש ראשוני, זה חלק מהטיפול.
Part of the therapy in Einot Bar is bringing people together. It's like between a mother and her child, of a dependency one on another. There's not somebody in charge. There's not somebody above. But people are people, and they're trying to put love inside. I'll just add to that. We were having a discussion prior today, and I said, when you go to Einot Bar, you're in a different language. You're in a different culture. You're in the culture of Einot Bar, right? And it doesn't make a difference who you are. For example, Einat was very concerned that her English isn't that good. But I told her, it doesn't make a difference. You're speaking the language of Einot Bar, and that's the language that we're talking about today. So now I can tell you, in my visits to Einot Bar, there's a kitchen there. The kitchen caters to whoever has to be there. In other words, if there's Orthodox Jews, if there's Muslims, everybody has their own dietary restrictions. And a note bar takes that off the table. They just cater to what the people need for them to live their lives as their lives. But it's something to bring the people together.
I want to add something from my perspective. First of all, we don't have rules in a replace of healing. We have one. You do what you want to do. You do what makes you feel comfortable. If you want to get into the water, you get into the water. If you don't, you don't. So this is the basic rule. It might sound weird, but we not talk about politics at Replace of Healing. And by the way, it's not a rule, but it's not happening for over 2 years because people understand we should be united here. We should be together. I had a lot of group conversation at Ripples of Healing, and I don't remember even one conversation, a meaningful conversation about politics. Not even one.
That's the answer.
Exactly.
I think this is the true story of people living in Israel. Not the media, but this is the true story. People have their opinions, and people need to respect other people's opinions. But that's not the issue. The issue is the togetherness. The issue is that we're in the same place, on the same boat. We have to do whatever we need to do for survival, whether it's on the battlefield or it's afterwards in therapy being helped.
Einat, throughout this conversation, you've been a little bit tearful.
זה לא... אי אפשר להתעלם, וזה בעצם... מה שקורה אצלנו זה המון אנשים ומשפחות ונשים וגברים, וכולם צעירים ומדהימים וחמודים, וזה מרגש, כן.
Through this whole session, it's very emotional, even though Einat says that she does it and she's there all the time. But just hearing the stories again and again and see how it affects the people, their families, it's extremely emotional for her just to hear the stories again, even though she's heard it 1,000 times. But every time it brings the emotions to the surface.
What can people do to support your work? How can we help from far away?
First of all, spread the words. Get ready to that tsunami, that PTSD tsunami that I talk about. Spread the words, spread our words. Financial ways, everything that we do cost money in Israel. The therapist, the electricity, all the bills, I don't need to explain it. Many people ask me, why the government doesn't provide you money? Why IDF doesn't provide you money? First of all, they does. But what they can give right now is not even close to enough than what the PTSD soldiers and civilians needs. And second, the government of Israel and the budget goes to the war, goes to other things than a mental treatment. And every soldier have a combat processing in some level, but not nearly enough, in my opinion. And I say that not as a Ripples of Healing manager, I said that as a combat soldier. Yitzchak, you want to add something?
I think at the beginning of the war, we were struggling to get the boys equipment that they needed. And it's not because the IDF couldn't bring equipment. I'm talking about like bulletproof plates or helmets or whatever. And that was the number one thing at the beginning of the war. And we went crazy trying to buy this stuff and making sure we were buying stuff that was qualified. And now we're dealing with after the war. And the government, just at the beginning of the war, they can't go from 0 to 100 miles an hour overnight. It's an army. It's a machine that takes oiling. Until it gets up running, it just takes time. Now we're in the post-war, and we're not in a sprint anymore. We're in a long marathon. And even now, the government doesn't have all the resources to go from 0 to 100 at a snap of a finger. But every hour that goes on and people are not getting the therapy is doing maybe even irreversible damage. So there is a necessity to help fund Ripples of Healing. I could tell you, one of the things that certainly impressed me, that the staff there for at least 6 months went without a salary. Let's provide what we have to provide to the guys. I don't care about getting paid. I have a mission. We have to do it. We have to help these people. But there's only so long that you could go without a salary. There's only so long that you could go without providing your families. How many? There's 30 staff there now?
30.
30. Therapists, social workers, and we're getting to whoever we could get to, and it's not enough. We need support. And whatever anybody could support, it's blessed.
אני חושבת שיש לנו משימה מאוד גדולה. אנחנו יצאנו אליה, אתה הצטרפת אליה, וגם הגורמים היום המובילים במדינת ישראל לוקחים חלק בה.
We have embarked on a huge mission that even the leading people in the country of Israel are now committed to supporting and helping this mission.
והמשימה הזו מחולקת בעצם לכמה רבדים ובכמה מישורים. כמו שאמרתי, אחד מהם זו הסברה. זאת אומרת, להגיע לאנשים ובאמת לידע אותם שיש דרך. זו משימה אחת. ומשימה שנייה שלנו בעינות בר, היא בעצם לקבל תמיכה רחבה, היא כרגע לא דרך הממשלה שלנו, אנחנו עובדים מעל הממשלה עם גופים שונים, כדי להתאגד ולבנות תשתית רחבה, שתוכל לקבל עוד רגע את הצונמי הגדול שאנחנו, כי כרגע זה רק הפרומו, אוקיי?
The mission has various levels. One level is explaining to the greater public what's going on, what this mission is of healing people. But then there's another part of the mission which is more practical, and it's not about the government helping or not helping. We're above the government, and we're trying to unite everybody, the Jewish world, in taking part in this healing process of the people of Israel. And that's where we're at right now. We need the support from the greater Jewish world. It's not limited to Israel.
אני אפילו גם אקח את זה למקום שלך, כי אנחנו מארחים ומלווים כל כך הרבה אנשים שהם פסיכולוגים ורופאים וקב"נים, אני לא יודעת איך מתרגמים קב"נים, מי שמלווה בעצם את הצד של החיילים, בעצם לבנות את המודל של עינות בר כרגע הוא הנבחר, ובעצם אנחנו מקימים היום, אני לא חלק, אני רק במודל, אבל המדינה היום יכולה להקים את החוות או את המתקנים שהולכים לעבוד דרך המודל הזה של העבודה דרך הגוף.
We're not just trying to take care of the people, but we're trying to put in process a system that could help traumatize people in the psychological field. And we've put together a model, we've developed a model that's being studied by several universities, not just in Israel, also in Germany and outside. And we're inviting psychologists, therapists, psychiatrists, anybody involved in trauma therapy to come and look at our model and maybe to even reduplicate the model, not just in various places in Israel, but throughout the whole world. For instance, there's organizations that we've been in touch with American soldiers who have been traumatized, but we're trying to reach out to the greater area and emphasize the necessity for mental health care for traumatized victims.
הדבר האחרון, שגם בזכותו אנחנו כאן, זה שציבור מאוד גדול צריך עכשיו טיפול, ואין לו איך. אין כסף לסייע לאותם משפחות, לאותם נפגעים, לאותם חיילים. רשימת המתנה היא מאוד מאוד ארוכה, זו הסיבה שאנחנו כאן היום.
The reason why we're in the States over these last 2 weeks is because what we've encountered is a huge amount of people that are in real dire need for mental health care in Israel. And we don't have the means to do it. We don't have the funds. So we're interested in increasing the facilities, increasing our input and output of people, and we can't do it by ourselves.
I know that this conversation could go on for a very long time because the work that you're doing is so important. It's personal, and it's much more than personal. But we're going to have to end here. I want to say one thing, which is that from afar, we've been watching as there have been many soldier suicides that have been plaguing the country. And so I say this with no exaggeration. I believe that the work that you are doing is saving lives. And so I hope that people who hear this will reach out and support you. Thank you, Tzviki. Thank you, Einat. Thank you, Yitzchak. This has been a really powerful conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe to What Came After wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us online at whatcameafter.com.
Oh,